So all of this is happening as the war in Ukraine rages on, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky posted this video to social media saying Russia bombarded the city of Odessa overnight. Zelensky saying 3 children were injured in those attacks, and it comes as Russia is claiming Ukraine hit a Russian gas pipeline, which Ukraine claims was a false flag attack staged by the Kremlin. Still, the two sides are inching closer to a partial ceasefire actually being brokered by the Trump administration. The president speaking about those negotiations earlier today.
I can tell you I've been having very good discussions, as you know, with President Zelensky and with President Putin. And President Putin will tell you that without the United States, he wouldn't be worried. But he is worried when the United States is involved.
For more on the potential plan for peace, retired Marine Corporal, there we go, Mark Kansian from the Center for Strategic and International Studies joining me now. Good to see you, Mark. As you know, Trump spoke with both Zelensky and Putin this week. You wrote after the Putin call that Trump's plan for peace within the first 100 days in office was pretty unrealistic. But I did have a chance to talk with presidential envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, yesterday, and he told me they are on track to make a deal by that timeline. Tell me why you disagree, Mark.
There are lots of details that need to be hammered out before you get any sort of peace deal. Even a ceasefire, which looks relatively straightforward, is complex. We saw that with the recent conversation with President Putin, that he was not willing to agree to a 30-day ceasefire, only this partial ceasefire that covers energy infrastructure. Making a final peace settlement could take a very long time. We have to keep in mind that to end the Korean War, the negotiations took 2 years, and there's never been a final peace settlement.
Well, Kellogg also laid out some of the U.S. strategy for lasting peace. I want you to take a listen to part of our interview here.
Once a ceasefire goes into place, peace goes into place, they're not going to mess around with Donald J. Trump. They are just not going to do that. And then you build, the people call it a steel porcupine. I made the comment, I've actually written about this, where I've said, well, maybe you want to make Ukraine like the Sparta of Central Europe. You make sure they're well-trained, well-equipped, and a lot of that is going to be on the Europeans' call because it's in their backyard. And you can do that. And I don't think the Russians want to do this again.
Your response?
Ukraine desperately wants some sort of security guarantees. And implied in the general's comment is that the United States, and especially the Europeans, would continue to provide military equipment and training, even if Ukraine did not become part of NATO. And that's short of what Ukraine would like, but it might be enough to reassure them that they could survive in the face of a continuing hostile Russia. Many people worry about a ceasefire leading to a couple of years of tension and then a renewed Russian attack.
You know, you sort of touched on this when you look to the past, Soviet Union, Russia, since the 1930s, about a dozen countries they have invaded. Trump's only in office for 4 years. So, you know, is this ceasefire deal, doomed from the beginning?
If it's signed by all sides, then there's some prospect that it will continue. And the ceasefire in Korea, for example, has continued, although it's sporadically violated by the North Koreans. The trick, the difficult part, is going to be first getting an agreement on a ceasefire and then setting up some longer-term negotiations to reduce tensions.
So Trump has floated American ownership of Ukrainian minerals and nuclear power plants as a way to deter further Russian invasions. Do you think that could work?
It would help a little. Having U.S. business interests in Ukraine would put Americans there, would put some of its capital at risk, and also with the power plants. The problem is it's a weak security guarantee. There have been many instances in history where countries have invaded and countries with economic interests at stake have not been willing to use military force. So it's helpful, but it's not enough.
Colonel Mark Kansian, appreciate your insight today.
Thanks for having me on the show.